Hello, people. Happy Wednesday. We're live. So today we have Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hey.
Today we have a really important episode. We're going to talk about mental health and some common practices that you can do because we all can struggle with that. Before we start the episode, we do want to mention that today is 9/11. So those of you who lost somebody, please accept our condolences. And what year you said it was?
The 23rd anniversary.
23rd anniversary. So yeah, we just want to point that out. And I think it kind of ties a little bit to what we're going to talk about today, because mental health can come from different sources, right? We're also going to talk a little bit about grief and how to deal with these things and, and generally living in New York because it's still a New York show. I feel like, this is a stressful city to live in. I think I mention it all the time. I talk about it with all my guests, no matter what we're talking about, whether it's friends or jobs or apartment hunting. It's always around stress and money and running around and, crazy stuff like that. So, before we start, I do want to introduce you. So give me just one moment. I want to read your amazing bio. Just correct me if I'm wrong. LMSW is a licensed master social worker, right?
You got it.
Okay, perfect. So, Mike Rublin. Rublin?
You got it.
Perfect. Mike Rublin, LMSW, is a social worker specializing in Alzheimer's care. He's a lifelong mental health advocate and self-proclaimed recovering musician. We're going to mention that as well, I'm curious. A former jazz and punk rock pianist. Wow. Mike is the Advocacy Lead with Sound Mind Live, an organization that uses the power of music to foster dialogue and improve mental health outcomes. He has a master's degree in social work from Fordham University, which he attended for its community organization and micro-practice track. His approach to mental health focuses on the interaction of individual and community and how we may show up for one another. I love that.
You killed it.
I love that. That's again when I saw the post about mind sound. That's why it got me so curious because I think it's so important, again, especially in a city like New York when we all dealing with things, to have a space that you can come to, and especially it ties to music, which speaks to my heart personally. So thank you for being here. Thank you for coming. If you can just say a few words, if there's something that I didn't mention.
No, I think you nailed it, and you got my last name right, which no one does. So congrats. When it says Rublin, it's spelled like that.
Just stick to the mic.
Oh, yeah. I've had many different. I feel like I've lived many different lives and many different careers. I was a musician, and now I'm in Alzheimer's care. I worked in homelessness, and I worked around mental health, and just kind of been all over the place. I used to work for the EPA back in the day. It's been a journey. So
wow.
I'm loving where I am, and that's my short bio. There's a much longer one.
I love how you tie mental health and what you studied in university with music, because there's a lot of talk all the time about the struggling musician, musicians that are trying and we broke and because, we're not succeeding. And I found myself actually combining my day job which is photography with music, and trying to work that together and still manage to do what I love. And I love how you also tied something that you study, something practical, into the music to not leave the broke musician kind of stereotype, but then actually, we all been there. And so, give back to the community, which I love. So today, by the way, guys, I started my semester, so the show structure changes a little bit. We're removing the mid break because I don't have time. I have class at 10:30 to attend to, so we're finishing at 9:30. So we're gonna go straight for a whole hour, and then we're gonna finish with the music. I'm also removing all the things that I usually do, like the little mentions, recommendations, especially when I have guests, because we have so much to cover today. So we're gonna talk about mental health. Stay with us. It's really, really important. And to dive right into it.
And do you mind if I go live on mine?
Of course. Oh my God.
Cool.
Please do. Please do. we're going like we have like phone, tablet, computer. Oh my God, so
There's
much
a lot going on.
technology. Please go live, of course. As long as you stick to the mic, we should be good.
Got it.
Amazing. Awesome. So, yeah, I want to dive into the first question, which would be, what is mental health?
Mental health looks different for everybody. I think when we often hear the term mental health, we think of mental illness, right? We think of what comes to mind first. What comes to mind, and just for the listeners, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear mental health? And I guarantee a lot of people, especially if they're not in the field, will say depression, suicide, anxiety, any of the kind of catch-all words. Maybe they know someone who's had a diagnosis, right? Like borderline personality, bipolar, you name it, schizophrenia, which we term schizoaffective. But really, mental health we all experience from day to day. And I think that's the big difference between mental health, mental illness, right? Just this morning, I was on the bus, and I haven't taken the bus up to Bushwick from Crown Heights in a while, and I was feeling a certain amount of stress. There was a lot of kids. I forgot that, kids are back in school. It's a whole thing. Very crowded bus. And I was like, I better not be late. And those moments in my, just navigating this in my head, feeling stressed, feeling just kind of activated, that's mental health, right? So it happens to us throughout the day. It's our emotions, both our positive and negative emotions, and also how we navigate those spaces and how we process them. That's mental health to me.
Okay. So when it comes to just to make sure I understand, so the differences between mental health and mental illness can be, because they both can technically be treated with medication, correct?
Correct.
But mental illness is something that is diagnosed on the higher level, on, like a more serious condition, whether mental health can be tackled with daily.
Just about. So mental illness, not all people are diagnosed, right? I was diagnosed with certain things as an adult that I wasn't when I was younger. I still have mental illness, right? At the same time, I think mental health is just, it's kind of an overall term for whether it's diagnosed or undiagnosed mental illness and our day-to-day and just our processing of the world, our emotions, right? And how we navigate those emotions. So I think of in terms of physical health, right? We often think our body, our, everything physical. This is really the internal, the spiritual, the psychological.
Okay, so who is affected by mental health? Is there a certain group that might be a little bit more affected by it? I mean, I know New Yorkers. Come on, you guys. I know. But is there like a certain, because there are illnesses that are that you can connect more to certain groups of people. What about that?
Absolutely. I think that certain communities, especially for it's lower socioeconomic status, affects people, impacts people disproportionately in this country and in the world, but particularly in this country, because you have access to care is often limited, right?
Yeah.
We often see it in marginalized communities based on culture, the Black community, ageism plays a part. So there's so many different identities and intersections that the way this impacts people disproportionately. But it does impact everybody, right? Maybe just not quite as equally.
Yeah, I can see that, because often, like, if I think about my stress and my anxiety and where it usually comes from, it can come from lack of money, money struggles. So I can see why you're saying that there are certain communities that might feel that more. It can comes to, like when it comes to college students, right? Like being in a certain place, getting certain grades, a certain profession, then we can talk about professionals. You have the important case in court that you have, even if you're rich, you have the money, you live in a great area, right? But your job, like you have a certain thing that you need to do, and all this stress, all this, craziness of life, especially as you grow up a little and you understand that you need to deal with so many things. Like even now, I'm just moving to a different apartment. I'm super happy, but there's so many things that I need to deal with, and so many delays and so many inconveniences that I find myself to just that I need to take a moment to just breathe, meditate, relax, and understand that it's okay. So I definitely understand how it can tackle just everyone.
And as we were talking just before us, moving is a whole ass thing. I I did it not too long ago, and I my heart is with you right now.
Yeah,
It's a lot,
thank you.
and you're doing
Yeah.
school and this. It's incredible. Just want to call attention to that.
Thank
I
you. I
see.
appreciate that. Yeah. No, it definitely came in a really crazy time. Me as like in my personality, like I like being busy. I'm okay with running around. But yeah, when I have things that I can't control, that I'm
Mm,
just like I need to wait on something, or you know how it is to like connect Con Ed and you know Spectrum and all that, and it's just all these things. So yeah, but it will be fine. It will be okay.
it'll be fine.
Yeah. Talking about, by the way, talking about the meditation that I do and, you know, all these things. And like I said, I saw the post that you opened the center, the Sound Mind. I'm saying it correctly,
You got
right?
it.
Sound Mind Center. I want you to talk a little bit about that, what it is, who can attend, because it's here in New York, you guys. If you're here in New York, please tell us all about it.
Cool. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the long of it. Okay, so the center has, for those that know SoundMind, the full name is SoundMind Live. We just call it SoundMind because it's a whole thing to say. But it's been around since around 2018. It's kind of I'm not the founder, but it's kind of my baby. I've been there through the thick and thin and through an entire pandemic when so many nonprofits were closing and just fully, I mean, it was a lot, as you can imagine. But the whole idea of SoundMind is kind of what we're talking about today. We use the power of music to foster dialogue around mental health. And what that means is we want to destigmatize it, right? We work with musicians who tend to be more vulnerable and outspoken around their mental health journeys because if you think about it, if you let's say we work with Elohim, who's one of my favorite artists out there. I don't know if you've heard of her. She's based out of LA. We've done a bunch of work with her where she is so open about her journey, and she's got a massive fan base. She plays all the festivals. She's like kind of electronic rock DJ extraordinaire, classically trained. You name it. You can tell. I think she's wonderful. Her listeners look up to her. They listen to what she say. They follow her podcast. You know, anything. And so when she is able to talk about it openly, she might impact someone, a listener, and say, you know what, I'm kind of going through that too, or I'm experiencing anxiety, and maybe not. I'm not a big musician, but I experience it day to day, and wow, someone else feels that as popular as this person, right? And she might bring on we'll work with her and, you know, developing like mental health tips, resources, which is a big part of what we do is we want to connect people. So we're destigmatizing mental health because that is, outside of access, is the number one barrier to people seeking support, right? They don't feel like people understand them. And that's really where a lot of this work comes from. And there's a lot of organizations, to be fair, doing tremendous work around this that are newer, that have been here for a while. But I think as it's mental health, quote unquote, trending, which is a good thing, right? People are really engaging in this dialogue, which is so important. So that's us in a nutshell, right? But we do so much more than that. What I love about this organization, where I come in, is I'm a big fan, and I don't want to say the word, well, maybe radical, whatever. I'm a big believer in kind of like radical access to mental health because that's the other big barrier. So we have resources we can connect people with, as we talked about before, like I'm a social worker. I don't make a ton of money, right? You're in school. Financial stress is a real thing, and it's this chronic thing that's kind of low-lying all the time. And so sometimes for us, the last thing we want to do is like, oh my God, a therapist. It's $40 a session if I have insurance, right? If not, you're looking at $200 a session. Maybe you don't necessarily want therapy. Maybe you've never been to it. What else is there? So that's where we can connect people with. And part of my position is really finding, and there's few and far between, but there's a good amount at the same time of resources that are low cost or free for folks. One of the big things we work with is promoting mental health funds, or what some people call like mental health scholarships. So for folks in need, you can apply, so to speak, and get some free therapy, for example.
Wow.
And
Wow.
hopefully ongoing. We have right now partnership with BetterHelp and Live Nation around a lot of these shows. Where if you show up to a show, we have a bunch of really cool ones coming up, like MKG. We did Sir, just some really cool musicians. Brooklyn Paramount, if you've ever been, beautiful location. Yeah, people come up to the table where we'll be stationed, and we give them a card. We talk about mental health. I'm usually like the social worker on site. You know, people might want to talk about what they're going through. And also, here's some resources, and here's a few sessions of free therapy through BetterHelp because you came here and the artist cares about this cause too. So we're big on that. And the last thing we do, we host, favorite part, mental health music festivals. So
Wow.
all these things combined into one festival. We just did, do you know House of Yes?
Yeah. Yeah.
We had a huge block party. It was like 5,000 or 6,000 people showed up, even during the rain, and it had like 80,000 impressions on social media, it was a huge thing to put together. And House of Yes, we worked with closely. We had a bunch of really cool musicians come out, and it was a mix of panels on mental health in the LGBT community, in the BIPOC community, in the music industry, which you would probably really appreciate.
They work with them often. Yeah.
So we do all that. And the center basically combines everything I just mentioned into one like concrete wellness space. This is our brand new spot. It's right in Dumbo on Plymouth Street, 202 Plymouth Street. And we encourage people to just swing by. It's going to be open pretty much all the time. And you can check out our website, soundmindlive.org, and it'll connect you there. And what you'll see is there's a bunch of wellness programming, right? So
that's going to be linked below. I'm going to link the website below so you can go and check it out.
Oh, thank you.
Of course.
Yeah. So you can check it out. You can follow us on SoundMind. Our Instagram is soundmind_live. And we're just going to be posting a bunch of programming coming up. I'm going to be hosting some mental health mini festivals. We're looking at open mics, comedy. I mean, you name it. We're having, yoga, sound bath meditations. Ecstatic dance is something I've recently gotten into through SoundMind that I didn't know too much about, and I'm just like in love with it.
I love sound bath meditation, by the way. I tried it a few times, and I'm the person, I never fall asleep in the middle of the day. It's just like, for me to fall asleep, that's like, wow. And I came to this meditation, and like 10 minutes in, I fell asleep. I was shocked. I woke up after I think 10, 15 minutes, and I was shocked that I fell asleep. That was, for me, like I got to my relaxation of the day, because that was insane to me. But I, obviously later I woke up and I did the meditation, but it's amazing. Like, I never heard of that, and I was introduced to it, and it was, wow, an experience. Really try that. Try sound bath meditation if you can.
I love that. It sounds like your body needed it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Such a release. I love that.
I wanted to ask you in regards to the center about costs. Is it free? Is it membership? How does that work?
I'd say we're mostly figured that out by now, but it's a work in progress. So some workshops are going to be free and open to, well, they're all open to the public, but will be free. And others will be ticketed. So basically, the ticketing goes where we want to keep the lights on and the doors open, that kind of deal. We also want to make it accessible. So our motto or our approach is essentially no one turned away as long as there's funding for it. So, part of it is the ticketing will go to, kind of like a pay it forward / pay as you go. And yeah, it depends on the workshop. We have a World Mental Health Day festival. So World Mental Health Day is October 18th. We're having ours the next day, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I think so.
Okay.
Which we're going to make accessible to everybody. So it'll be like tiered ticketing and pay what you can. So things like that. We'll have like one-off and series and workshops where it's free. Outside of that, people are free to just come check out the space. We'll have Wi-Fi going. You can meet people, gather, network. A lot of people that we've seen will be showing up to these spaces are a mix of creatives, right? Not just musicians, because it's kind of all across the board. Practitioners in like the wellness space, anything from like very holistic to therapists. I mean, you name it. And then just your everyday people just want to show up and check this stuff out, especially people that are brand new to this. Like, I've never tried a sound bath meditation. I want my first one to be at a place where like the entire approach, the lens, the framework is around holistic wellness and mental health support for people. So I think that's kind of the energy we're bringing in. Mm-hmm. And again, we just want to make it accessible. So
that's amazing. I love that. Can you tell me if you can, how how did it start? Like where did it come from? What inspired that? And before you do, you can turn a little bit like that, like go, yeah, that will be so I can see,
Oh, fair.
so YouTube can see your face. Perfect, amazing.
And also, thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm just seeing if there's any questions.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, okay, feel free to check out if there are any questions. Welcome to Newtown Radio.
Welcome, y'all. We're having a good old time. We started, so the executive director is named Chris Bullard, and he was a musician, and he kind of, I wouldn't say stopped for a while. He's basically back in the game. He's doing a lot. He's a fantastic artist, guitarist, singer, and he started it just based on his own. I mean, he's very open about this, but his own experience living with bipolar disorder, right? And he got his MBA and decided to start this. And at the time, and technically still now, there's no organization doing this. It's a very like niche space, right? There's some really amazing organizations out there doing work for a while, like Music Cares. They're part of the Recording Academy. Backline, which is a little bit newer. So there's these, kind of, older organizations, but no one's been actually doing this with this approach and really making it like front-facing accessible. Essentially, our thing was hosting live music events. And I think that's what gets people into it, because who doesn't love live music? And then this is just something where we're actually connecting with people in person. So that's how it started. We started really small back in the day. I think it was 2018, where we were meeting in like the upstairs of Italy, if you've been to that one in like the financial district, which is you're just surrounded by just smells of cheese, because it was like in a cheese section, but it was a free place to meet because we didn't have a concrete meeting spot. And it was just
that's how things start.
That's how things start. You're just surrounded by cheese, and it smelled really good. But it was just like a ragtag bunch of us just kind of getting together, volunteering. Like none of us got paid or anything. And we were just figuring it out. And there was such a support from it right from the get-go. We had our first mental health music festival, I believe, at Rough Trade, which I don't know if it's still around in Williamsburg. It's like Flaming Lips inspired, and it was like really trippy and psychedelic and really, really cool. And it got a really big turnout. It basically sold out, or just about sold out. Wow. And we saw, like, all right, we're doing this. Like, people are into it. People are asking a lot of questions, and then just kind of the rest is history.
Wow. Do you feel like, and that might be a personal question, so feel free if you don't want to answer it.
I'm an open book, just FYI.
Okay, perfect. Let's do this.
For better or worse.
But what I wanted to ask you, do you feel like running the center and being a part of it as one of the founders, right? Does that help you personally with your mental health and like being more, aware of how you feel?
TBH, it's been both. It's been both. I think that I have an adult diagnosed ADD. Right. While it's not specifically considered a mental health condition, many people see it as a mental health condition, or it can impact your mental health. And
what's ADD? Like
attention deficit disorder.
Okay. So that's different from ADHD.
Slightly. It's kind of like the umbrella for that. So I actually don't know whether I have ADD or ADHD, but the H is the kind of hyperactivity aspect, okay. Right? Mm-hmm. Which I do have some of that as well, but it's kind of at this point just low dopamine. That's the big thing with it, right?
I think I have only H.
Just H. So it's interesting because I think it's manifested in like just people pleasing tendencies and just doing a lot, getting distracted, getting burnt out, and so for my time with the organization, and also just like in my general work and day to day and social life, it's been kind of navigating that. And so I do a lot for, event planning, which that's my thing. I love event planning. Sometimes I feel like it affects my health negatively, that I can be doing too much. We're working with a small team, and funny enough, it's just, it's been really nice at the same time being more and more connected with resources and people in that same boat. The music industry, which essentially this comes down to, it's a cutthroat place, as you know, right? You're never off. You're working really hard. You're working nutty hours. And I think just connecting with people and finding supports has actually been really uplifting. So at some points, it's, it's intense, like anything else can negatively impact your mental health. I would say most of the time, 90%, it actually makes me feel really good. And it's something that I feel really passionate about. And it's like when you see the fruits of your labor right away, you see the smiles on people's faces or the tears that need to be let out, like the catharsis. Those things make it so worth it. And it's just something I hope to be doing just ongoing. So,
That's amazing to me because I noticed that there is a common denominator with the people that I bring to my show, whether we talk about mental health, social clubs, health and fitness, all these things, creativity, being a musician. Kevin and I tackled it last time. Chris and I talked about it when we were talking about health and fitness and how that helps you feel better, what you eat, what you put in your body, the social club that we talked with, the Shaka Club, finding friends, finding community, all this, to see you soon. So I feel like all the episodes, obviously living in New York, we do mention that, it's hard, and especially people come here and sometimes you come here alone and then you find yourself kind of like struggling with like, what do I do? How do I do it? Money issues, stress, school, work, apartments, all these things. And I just love how all this like ties together because you mentioned, community and, finding your people and being able to express yourself. And I know it can be hard, especially, and I do know that it really depends, like, if we're talking back to stereotypes, for Chris and I talked about it when we talked about the fact that for men, sometimes it's a little bit harder to find those communities and to open up because you learned, you're being taught to be like tough and, not to show emotion. And certain communities, when it comes to certain communities, like I know I'm Russian, so I know coming from Russia, like, God forbid a man cries, and like, no, that's a woman thing, and I feel like, thank God that it's changing, that now it's being kind of like, it's being accepted that that's okay to, not it is like, it's not a good thing, but it's okay to feel bad. It's okay to, be depressed, and you need to express your feelings, emotion. You need to find this place to, to where to relieve the stress and like where to go. And I'm so happy. And you mentioned that September is the Mental Health Awareness Month. Is it September?
Actually, it's a Suicide Prevention Month.
Suicide Prevention Month, yeah.
Which has taken, it's interesting. I follow this really cool podcast called We Are Man Enough podcast, and you can listen, I don't know, what is it, Spotify? It's on everything, but it's also, I was watching this morning, it made me think about it, and last night, and they have a big segment on suicide prevention, and men, which make up the larger percentage of suicides, at least in this country. And I love the work that they're doing. And the work is simple. It's kind of like we're doing. It's destigmatizing it, right? So much of mental health, in my opinion, is you have to be self-aware and notice your triggers and notice what's going on and kind of label them, define them so that, you don't over-internalize and get really upset and can't deal with them in order to process them. And then once you process them, then to make strides to say, okay, what do I do to now like really care for myself? To practice that self-care, to make sure that, if I'm dealing with this kind of stuff, whether it's trauma, especially, in men, childhood trauma, you name it, you have to be able to get to a certain point where, okay, I'm going to be dealing with this probably for the rest of my life, because a lot of times that's the way trauma works. What are my next steps, right? So you have three things going on. You have to notice and your triggers, be self-aware. You have to process, and you have to take action, right? And that action can look like supportive community. I was in like a men's group for a while, which I'm hoping to reinvigorate, right, with other men that we would only feel comfortable talking about with other cis men, and also just to kind of avoid, having the putting on the women in our lives, which we so often do, unfortunately, and it's the emotional labor, and y'all are stressed enough, so like dealing with all this shit as a woman. So I think that there's communities, when men, women, musicians, you name it, you have to find your community. I think that's a big part of mental health that people don't talk about. And then it's also the individual too, right? So like in my bio, I talked about how my approach is the intersection of community and the individual, because I think they go hand in hand. You can't just have one of them without the other. Mm-hmm. You can go to all the therapy in the world, right? But if you don't have the supports around you, the structures in place to really keep you there, keep you afloat, and maintain you. Not because we can't do this all alone. That's my big thing. We're
Yeah.
our own like caregivers, right?
Yeah.
You know, in my own line of work as an Alzheimer's social worker, I work with families caring for folks with Alzheimer's. It's intense, right? Like, as you can imagine, like everyone knows someone who's had Alzheimer's. And we often tell people, like, you can't serve from an empty cup. You can only serve from the overflow, right? And I actually think it's the same in caring for yourself. We're our own caregivers. So that's my whole approach, and some people might think differently. But in my long run there, I think that for men in particular, it's very difficult. And you're right; it's really cool to see the work that people are doing to destigmatize it and have more men talking about this shit.
Yeah.
Sorry if I'm allowed to curse.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. Come on, come on.
Kill me.
No, I think I know men that are part of these communities, not specifically in New York, but I do know that it exists. So I'm sure it exists here, and if it doesn't, Mike will create it. But I think also, because you mentioned if there's like a couple, right, and they want to talk to each other. I feel like it's so nice to. Of course, you can talk with your. Not spouse. What's the word I'm looking for? With your partner. With your partner, right? Of course, you can talk to them, but I feel like there are certain things that you don't want to discuss with your partner, and that's fine, because we all feel certain things sometimes that maybe not even related to our partners, right? But then our partner can kind of like take it the wrong way, or there are like, especially people like when you live together, there are certain things, and it's so nice to go out and to have this community to talk with other people, especially a group that you identify with, that can maybe help you, even if it's something at home that you want to like discuss with somebody, right? Like you mentioned, not everyone can afford therapy. Sometimes it takes time to find the right therapist until they learn everything about your life. You're like, come on, I'm just, that can be stressful as well. So it's so nice to have your own community, and also to understand that you're not the only one going through the same problem, right? Like you hear other people and you're like, okay, I'm not crazy. This is common. This is happening. So yeah, I think it's so important. I don't have one myself. It sounds amazing. I would love that. I was always like lacking a group of girlfriends. I feel like I never had that, especially with like my history with like the boarding school and then military and then security officer. I'm mostly surrounded by men, and I'm kind of like more. It was easier for me to connect to men for some reason, and to find myself in male circles rather than with girlfriends. And I do have girlfriends, but it's not like a group. And I feel like it's something, when I started exploring it a little bit more, I did have this group for a little while, and then they just left the city, and I was like, what does do? So I do have a separate, separate friends, but I want to have that, because when I started having that and I could have talks with girls about things that I usually don't talk with guys about, it's different. It feels like I can open up about certain things that I not necessarily can open up, to my partner or to a male friend, or, because there's still like a certain things that, girls would understand me better when coming to that. So yeah, I hope you can find your community. I'm looking for mine. So, let me know.
Let me
There's
know.
an opening for girlfriends group. But yeah, while we were talking about that, there was a question that I really wanted to ask you. Again, ties back to the center and, therapy and everything. Do you have, for the listeners here, some recommendations that people can do at home by themselves, just to kind of relieve stress, anxiety, to, maybe some exercises or thoughts? Please share that with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, especially this is me. I'm always anxious in the morning, so I do a lot of these. I've been getting better about it, not just dishing out information, but actually doing more of them. So I often think, there's so many mindfulness practices, right? That's what a lot of us think about when we think of like self-soothing practices. And so they're grounding, and it's going to be different for everybody. I always say, like, it's a bit of trial and error to find out what works for you, right? So I think of Maybe you have anxiety that you hold in your body, which most of us do, especially people who have experienced trauma. There's books like The Body Keeps the Score. There's a ton more
Oh,
to
I
that
have
stuff.
that one.
And there's
I have
so
that book.
many, and it's just, oh, there we go. Um, but so somatic practices, right? We call it like catharsis through the body might look like progressive muscle relaxation. You ever heard of that one?
I think so. Yeah, I think I've been taught how to do that, but a long time ago.
That one's a cool one. And I can throw out a few, and if you want to do one in real time, I'm
Yeah,
happy to.
we have time. So if you want to describe something a little bit in more detail, feel free. We're good with time.
Cool. So progressive muscle relaxation. It doesn't work for everybody, but for who it does, myself included, I think works wonders. And all these things I can describe are just you can do on your own. Like if you're in a crowded party, you need to get away for a second because you're having overwhelming anxiety or you're experiencing some grief and you need to kind of center yourself. That could be really good. It's kind of similar to a body scan where you're like, you can do it with eyes open or closed, but you're like thinking about each part of your body. Maybe you're starting from the head down or the feet up, and you're just each part of your body. You're kind of considering. You're just kind of feeling the energy there, right? And with a body scan, you will notice the energy. You'll notice your feet, does it feel weighted? Does it feel tense? Does it feel, whatever? Does it feel warm, cold? And you actually don't fight it. You don't try to change it. You're just like accepting it. It's like this radical acceptance. And you're going through each part of your body, and it can be really, really cathartic. With progressive muscle relaxation, you're doing the same thing, but instead of just noticing it, you're like curling your toes in like really hard and then releasing them. You're doing the same thing with your hands. You're like curling in a fist and you're releasing. You're like, tightening up your shoulders. We hold a lot of tension in our shoulders. Like
Yeah.
literally like most people in the world do that,
Uh-huh.
especially in New York. We're walking around like this all day, like tightening it up and then releasing it a few times and like kind of breathing through it. And that is like a really somatic practice to literally, you can almost feel like the energy, just like that air, like flowing out of you.
Wow.
And that's people that hold trauma and anxiety in the body. It's a really nice one. Other ones would be, I'm a big believer in breath work. There's so many different types. There's holotropic breathing. Some people might associate that with like that guy Wim Hof. Have you ever heard of the Iceman?
I think I've heard the name. Yeah. Yeah.
He's like a ton of world records where he's just like been under ice and swam the longest and all this crazy stuff and hold his breath in deep cold temperatures, like wearing a pair of shorts. I think he like hiked Everest. So some nutty stuff out there. But
Hiked Everest. That sounds like he was just chilling, just
yeah,
hiking.
just an idle Tuesday. But his breath work around that kind of prepares his body is really helpful, and that's kind of associated with that. My big one that I could do briefly right now because it's so freaking simple. Activates what's called your parasympathetic nervous system. So we have our sympathetic nervous system is our flight or fight response, right? That's your amygdala firing off and saying, "Oh my God, there's danger," right? It often comes nowadays from back in the day. It was like, all right, if you're going to be attacked by an animal or if you had to go, run to safety because of whatever, that was what kicked into gear.
Now it's like public speaking.
Now it's public
Things like that,
speaking.
yeah.
It's scanning, doom scrolling on social media all day, which is very easy to do with everything going on in the world right now. It's folks who are maybe experiencing it today on the anniversary of September 11th, right? However they were affected. And so we want to get our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest, rest and restore program in place. It's kind of like your cerebral cortex if the amygdala is your gas pedal, just shooting you full throttle, and maybe that's anxiety. It's a very primitive part of the brain. Your cerebral cortex is kind of keeping you like, whoa, buddy, like slow the F down. Let's figure this out. So that's what you want to activate. And this one is called a 4-7 breathing technique. And I like to do it with using your hands together. Like, you ever seen one of those GIFs? Is that a GIFs? Where it has like a triangle or a bubble and it just expands. And you're supposed to breathe with it. And then it comes back in together. You can actually do it with your hands. So you're activating even more parts of your brain at once. It's almost like distracting and hyper-focusing.
So like this.
Mm-hmm. So I like to do it. You breathe in for 4 through your nose as you pull your hands apart. Hold it for a sec, and then breathe out through your mouth for 7. Pulling your hands back together. ending with your fingertips touching. You can do that 4 times. Breathing in for 4. Breathing out for 7. And again. And we all breathe differently. For some people, maybe they can't do an out breath of 7, maybe they can do 6, whatever it is. But the key is that you want to breathe out your exhale a little bit longer than your in breath, because it's affecting the way you do this enough, you'll notice your blood pressure usually goes down, your cortisol levels go down. And the idea is that when we breathe in, where our pulse is actually being raised, our blood pressure is going up, and when we're breathing out, it's the exact opposite. So just by doing that, and also using your hands, that's the somatic movement, right? That's activating different parts of the brain. You do it long enough, however many times. For me, I've gotten to the point where I do like 5 of those and I'm pretty solid, right? Even in like a stressful situation. Other people, it might take 10 minutes, but it's something you could do on your own. And it's so simple and it's free 99. You can just do it. Maybe it looks a little weird if you're doing it in the middle of a party, but you can do it just about any time. And
that's an awesome exercise. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your take on meditation? Because I started doing guided meditation in the morning. I also do it in the evening, like when I try to fall asleep and I feel like, I'm not sleepy or like a lot of stress and things like that. And then I do a little meditation music. What's your take on meditation?
Here for it. Love it. I'm not going to lie. I'm not as into it as I want to be. Okay. There's so many different modalities that work for different people. I'm not quite there yet. I've done it at certain points in my life when I have had less going on and I get really engaged in it like right away. So for me, I'm just like, and those who know me, it's my 3 fire signs. I'm a Leo all straight through. So I'm just like working out and like very somatic, right? Like if I'm stressed, I'm like going for a run or doing push-ups or something, or I'm just like deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation. So that's like my meditation.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that because there's a walk-in meditation. I struggled starting meditation for the longest time because I'm hyper, as I mentioned before. Like I need to be doing stuff. It's hard for me to stay in one place for 30 minutes they usually tell you. So I was like, nah, I can't do 30 minutes. So I actually do it like between 10 to 15 minutes every day. And that's what I can do. This is something I can't sit for 40 minutes. It's too much. I can do the sound bath because it's like guided and you're there and you paid for it. You came there. So you're like, okay, I'm here. But I agree with you. Like it's really hard, especially for a busy person that like always on the move, to find 40 minutes in a day, especially in the morning. Like my mornings are just like so. That's definitely hard. So I found for myself that I'd rather to do the 10 minutes in the morning that I can actually engage with. And even like today, I didn't do it because today, like I needed to be here 8 a.m. I woke up at 5, just to like, and I don't have time, I was barely here on time because like there's so many things to do. But if you can incorporate these 10 minutes 3 times a week, start with 1 time a week, if that's what you can, just like, I always believe that something is better than nothing. So you don't have to create yourself like a crazy schedule, 40 minutes every day. Even like I read a book. I always recommend books in this show. And you mentioned one, The Body Keeps the Score. I'm going to post it here. But I read a book that I don't remember if it was the compound effect or some... I'm gonna need to look up the book because it might be a different one. But they said that healthy habits, building healthy habits, or something like that. I'm gonna link it below. But the author basically was saying that if you want to start a healthy habit of something, start with like a minute. If you can't dedicate yourself, let's take the gym, for example. It is so hard to go to the gym, right? Those of you who especially like don't have it nearby and, new to exercising and all that, going to the gym. So it says in the book that you need to like dedicate 2 minutes. You start with 2 minutes. And what it means 2 minutes, you get to the gym, you look at the gym and you go home. And you do that. You're starting with that. And because the hardest thing is to actually do that, right? To get your butt up from the couch and be like, I'm going to work out, right? So you start with these 2 minutes, and in 2 minutes, you're not even working out. You just came to the gym, you looked at the gym, it looked nice, and you went home and you're like, okay, I did this. You start like that, then 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. And then your brain is like, I'm already here. Let's like, but you created a habit of getting up from the couch. You didn't even work out yet. But this is how it happens, right? And I'm starting it also with exercising. I'm doing it with meditation. When I don't meditate, I'm like, oh, I can dedicate like at least a 5 minutes, just do something.
Maybe not 10, 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's 5 minutes, even just like breathing exercises, right? Like 1 minute of what you just showed. This is a certain kind of meditation. Like you're just breathing, you're concentrating on the here and now, on your fingers, on your breathings. And I feel like do something, right? At least that, and kind of start that habit slowly. And I do feel that it helps just to connect with your mind, release all the stresses that we have all the time, especially if you live like in a very crazy neighborhood, like, Midtown or like certain areas in Brooklyn, that the noises are like constant. And it's like, yeah, we're getting used to it, but it's still a noise in your head that you're constantly hearing what everyone is doing, what's going on, all the cars or the people, the dogs, all the everything.
Yeah, that New York City lifestyle. I think I'm a big nature person. I have to get out all the time or I lose it. And yeah, I think we often forget until we get those moments of silence, just how activated we are all day long living in a city like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's New York. It's nutty. But I love what you said about that, because putting on like the professional lens, like I do a lot of supportive counseling with folks, right? And with people who are very stressed, high stress as caregivers. And that's a lot of times what we talk about is this feeling of being stuck, right? You get overwhelmed. You're like, you know what? I know I should do this to help myself calm down. I know I should do this, but it can feel overwhelming. Like so I love that approach, and it's what we call SMART. I forgot the actual it's like small, something, attainable, whatever, goals, tasks. Like you're breaking it down into smaller steps, and you don't necessarily have to get the whole goal done right away, but it takes practice. And it's just our reward system.
Yeah.
For someone like me with ADD, it's dopamine. It's like literally, all right, put your shoes next to your bed for tomorrow morning, your gym shoes, and walk out the door and go 1 block. And if you come back, cool, you made it that far, you got the reward. The next day you might go further. Or maybe this time you go to the gym. But either way, you made that attainable small goal, and that is just like a game changer right there. So I love that you brought that up. That's really cool.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, as I said, it's mental health is a really important topic, and I'm so happy that you're here today to talk about that, because I mean, I noticed it on myself. Like I've been living here for 3 years almost, and I used to live, well, before that I lived in Israel, but before that I lived in LA. LA is a little different, way different. We'll also mention that a lot on the show, but LA is more chill, it's like less noisy in most areas, and it's like the lifestyle is a bit, more flowy. Talking about Israel, like well, not now, but it's quiet. It's like, it's a quiet, more like, as long as you're not in Tel Aviv, you should be, it's pretty chill. So especially like where my mom lives, it's a very like quiet, small town. There's no noise. Everyone's like, so coming from there and then going to New York, and everything is like, it's constant. You wake up in the morning with the trash truck collecting trash under your window, and then the sound of the siren of the fire department just training, just practicing, and that shit is noisy as hell, right? And then somebody's under your window picking up the trash, searching for bottles, right? And then a homeless person yells, and then the subway, and then the cars, and I remember waking up in the morning, I was like, what the hell is that? Thank God for my soundproof windows in this apartment, but holy shit, damn.
It's a lot.
That's why we go to the Sound Mind Center and just listen to nice music and relax into some sound bath meditation. What's your nearest event?
Nearest event. So we're having, it's kind of like we're doing a small, on the down low. Well, it's not on the down low now, but we're doing like a soft opening for like friends and family, kind of people who have been in the network for a while and been like with SoundMind for a while, actually tomorrow night.
Wow. Okay.
But we first started programming, and I think we might have an event this week. I'm not totally sure, but I know we do on Sunday. and it's a wellness oriented event.
Okay.
So we have like pretty consistent programming and like series, workshops, one offs, just all through the next month straight already. And then our next like big public event will be the World Mental Health Day event,
Okay.
which we're in the process of planning. And we're actually very open to like musicians that might be interested. If this is like your vibe, like, and want to perform or just like attend, definitely reach out to us.
Amazing.
That should be a really cool one.
So you heard Mike, just attend if you want to be a musician or if you feel like you can contribute. But they can contact you, right? On your Instagram, just talk to him if you want to attend, if you have any other questions, because you can ask me, but what I'm going to do is ask him. So it's just better to follow him and reach out to him and ask him if there's something that you can contribute or if you just want to attend. Yeah, so happy about that.
Yeah, we try to curate like, so every month there's like an awareness month, so to speak, right? There's like Men's Health Month, there's a World Mental Health Month, this is Suicide Prevention Month. So some of the programming, not always in person. We also we have a podcast, and we have called Going There with Dr. Mike, which is this like amazing, really cool guy, like this amazing therapist who actually talks to like some pretty big name celebrities, musicians around all sorts of stuff. So each year we've done something around suicide prevention, and we have a big social media presence. So we're doing a lot of kind of validating and normalizing, and we're showcasing different organizations doing that work, like AFSP, which is American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. We work really close in partnership with NAMI, which is National Alliance of Mental Illness. For those who have not heard of them, they are freaking awesome. And just, doing the work, just making sure that people get that information if you can't make it in person. And side note, NAMI is one of my favorite organizations out there for a reason. So it is completely run and managed for people with mental illness, by people with mental illness,
Wow.
and free. And
Wow.
they have a helpline. And what I use them for, so let's say you wanted to be in a group. We're talking about groups before, right? Like, and just, which can be really validating and normalizing and sharing tools and tips and just kind of checking on each other, accountability, you name it. So let's say you have something like a bipolar disorder or borderline personality disorder. You can go to one of these groups for free. NAMI Metro is the New York City local specific group. So I don't know if there's a mix of hybrid and virtual, but a lot of them do meet in person throughout the city. I was in a group, so my sister, who is a younger sister, she passed just before the pandemic, and she had borderline personality disorder. And one of the most beautiful things about NAMI is that I was in like we call like a care partner support group for family members and friends of people caring and loving someone who has BPD, which is a specific condition that's people often confuse with bipolar. It's very different. But the ups and downs and the whole journey. And it was just the most supportive group that I've ever been in. And it was free. And it's one of those, we talk about access to resources. Like, I just cannot highlight and shout out NAMI enough. But they're our longest running partners. So we're going to be working a lot with them, even just through the center too. We're like super excited about that.
Thank you for sharing that. And very sorry for your loss.
Appreciate it.
But thank you for sharing that. I know that's not easy. And I will find the page of the organization of NAMI, and I will link it down below for those of you who are interested in checking this out. This is a great resource. So thank you for that.
Yeah, there's so many out there. I was going to do a shout out. So not to toot my own horn, but
no, please do. Wait, that's exactly my next question.
Myself and some of the team as well, with Sound Mind, I'm kind of like the social worker, the person I'm the advocacy lead. So I'm like, are we on our P's and Q's? Are we saying the right thing? Are we using like appropriate language, and affirming language? And one of the things that I've developed on our website, because a lot of people will ask, okay, this is awesome, but like, where are these free resources? Where are you name it? It's our webpage, and you can find it on there, but it's just soundmindlive.org/resources. It's this entire page dedicated to resources, low cost, free, also just like, how do I find a therapist? Where's holistic? Where's psychedelic treatment? You name it. Support groups, yada, yada, yada. And they're all, but they're all on there, and they're based on community. right, and identities. So there's a ton of mental health funds for people experiencing mental health challenges in the Black community and Indigenous communities. There's a bunch for the LGBT community, for the AAPI communities, for the music community, like anyone working in the music industry, whether you're an artist or creative or not. Maybe you're a manager, maybe you're a label, producer, whatever. They're all there. There's like tremendous resources in the past few years. So they're all there. And then just
Amazing. I will link that as well so you can find it easily.
So that's my baby, and I'm pretty proud of it. There's a lot. It took a lot of work to find all of it, and people often. I also encourage people, if you know or if you work with a really cool resource that might be valuable, like, hit us up if we don't know about you. Like, we'd love to showcase.
Yeah, please do. And if you're looking for more resources, I have an episode answering your questions about NYC. It was the previous one before the one with Kevin, and I mentioned a few resources for health, right? For how you can try to get insurance for free or for low cost. And I mentioned that I think there is a Metro Health Plus that you can try. There is obviously Medicaid and, specifically for NYC care and Health First. So I mentioned also these resources. So check that out, because if you're an international student, ask your school. They usually have these resources as well. You can ask your work. You can ask other people. You can ask Mike, depending on which community you belong to. Sometimes they have it for specific communities. They have it for, these resources. So please check, especially when it comes to health insurance. This is a common stress for people. I'm actually listening to that now also in a book that I'm reading, Think and Grow Rich. I don't know if you heard about that. And his closing episode is a chapter. He's talking about how people are often stressing out about health, right? And the more you stress out about health, if you don't have health insurance and you're like, I can't get sick because it's like the bills, right? And it's something that is very common in this country. And if you're always stressing about that, guess what? You're going to make yourself sick. Mm-hmm. So we don't want to do that. So just make sure that you're covered and you have all your resources in place, and you have your health insurance. And then you have the resources to calm your mind down. And when you're taking care of that, along with all the episodes that we did here, like the social clubs and the music and, everything that you can do, health and fitness, and just to keep that healthy lifestyle, and attend the events that we're recommending here, because there is a reason that I'm inviting these amazing people here, so they can talk about things that can help you tackle this crazy ass city that we live in. But yeah, I hope that helps, because it helps me. Every guest that I bring, it's just so much new information that I gain myself, and I really hope that helps you too.
No, really appreciate it, because we're all complex, well-rounded people, right? And part of that is health insurance is a big part of it. And I will not offer this to the larger community, but I will say, if I have the capacity, what I do for a lot of my friends is I help them find therapists. And so far, I'm doing pretty well with it. Sometimes I miss, but I usually help them with that kind of stuff because of my friends. And they come to me and they can come to me. Just navigating health insurance is part of what I do for my main job as a social worker. It's mostly Medicare and Medicaid, but I've been unemployed before and gone on, WellCare and Health First, and I've had great health insurance and shitty health insurance, and just I'm pretty well versed in it. And even then, still pretty difficult. So I feel for people, it's so much to navigate, especially in a country like this where it's more profit driven than not. As not to go in the whole politics of that, but I'm really glad you had. I was listening to that episode too, and just so glad that came up, and that it's a useful resource. But at some point, what I want to do on the resources page, and probably sooner than later, maybe after this week, is give a little breakdown of how to navigate accessing health insurance just in general, probably specific to New York, because I think that would be helpful. So
for sure, that would be helpful. We are hitting our hour mark, So we're gonna finish. Unfortunately, we're having such a good episode, but I have to go. So I want to thank you again for coming. Thank you so much for showing up and telling us about this important topic of mental health. And again, today is an important day that we're mentioning the 9/11, and we have the Suicide Prevention Month that we're also mentioning, the awareness of that. So make sure you are good. Make sure that your close ones are, good. Check with yourself, check with them. And I hope you have a great week. I'm going to see you in 2 weeks for another episode. We'll see what we're going to do. I don't know yet. But yeah, thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you. And yeah, thanks for having this opportunity. And as I often tell people, check in on your strong friends. It's important.
Yeah. Bye, guys.